You already know the truth. Deep down, in that quiet place inside you, beneath the hope, beneath the rationalizations, you know this person is not right for you. Not now. Maybe not ever. And yet, here you are, still holding on. Still answering their texts. Still waiting for the version of them that only exists in your mind. Why? Why is it so hard to let go of someone who's clearly not giving you what you deserve? Let's talk about that. Because this is not just about them. This is about you, your heart, your healing, your worth. We don't fall in love with who someone is, we fall in love with who we believe they could be. And that distinction is where so many people lose themselves. It's not the reality of what we're living with that keeps us tethered. It's the fantasy of what we might someday have. You see the glimpses, the potential, the rare moments when they're fully present, when they say the right thing, when it feels safe, romantic, exciting, when the connection clicks and your heart whispers. See? This is why we stay. But potential is seductive because it gives you just enough to hold on to, without actually giving you anything stable to stand on. You're investing in a future that hasn't shown up. You're betting on growth that keeps stalling. And maybe you tell yourself you're patient, that love takes time, that no one's perfect and everyone has flaws. But here's the truth. Love that only exists in moments is not enough to build your life on. Hope is beautiful, but not when it blinds you to the patterns that are slowly wearing down your self-worth. The reason it's so hard to walk away from someone who's wrong for you is because you've seen what might be possible, and you've made that version of them your emotional home. You've attached your happiness to that version. You've built a story in your mind that says, if I just keep showing up, if I just love them enough, if I stay long enough, if I work on myself harder, then they will become who I need. But you're not in a relationship with who they could be. You're in a relationship with who they are right now. And that version, the inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, half-in, half-out version, is not feeding your soul. It's draining it. There's a dangerous thing that happens when you fall for someone's potential. You stop living in the relationship that's actually in front of you. You start living in your head. You start managing your expectations, rationalizing red flags, lowering your standards because you keep thinking, once they sort through their stuff, once they heal, once they're ready, then we'll be happy. But love isn't about waiting for someone to become ready. Love is about two people showing up, fully and honestly, in the present. Not promising you that someday they'll meet you there. You're not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong person. And yet, even when we know all of this, when the red flags are waving, when our friends are gently warning us, when our gut is screaming, we still stay. Why? Because the idea of starting over feels like jumping into a black hole. It's terrifying. It's the unknown. You've built a whole life around this connection. You've merged your routines, made memories, wrapped your heart around theirs. And walking away feels like tearing apart the very fabric of your identity. There's this little voice that whispers, what if I never find someone who makes me feel this again? Even if that feeling is unstable, even if it's tied to anxiety, to waiting, to constantly wondering where you stand. It's something. And when you've been without real connection for so long, even emotional chaos can start to feel like intimacy. But don't confuse intensity with compatibility. The highs and lows, the emotional roller coaster, that's not passion. That's survival mode. You're clinging to crumbs, and your heart is trying to make a meal out of them. When we say we're afraid of starting over, what we often mean is that we're afraid of the silence that comes after we finally let go. That aching quiet where there's no distraction, no text to check, no emotional drama to decode. Just space. Just you. And maybe you've forgotten how to be in that space. Maybe you've lost touch with the part of you that doesn't need anyone else to feel whole. But that space, that silence, it's where healing happens. It's where clarity returns. It's where your self-respect begins to rise again. Here's something we rarely admit to ourselves. Sometimes we stay not because we love the other person, but because we've made this relationship mean something about us. If it ends, does that mean we failed? Were we not enough? Did we waste our time? And those questions keep us stuck in shame, when in reality, walking away is not a failure, it's a declaration. It's saying, I know what I need, and I refuse to keep waiting for someone to become it. It's terrifying, but it's the kind of terrifying that leads to freedom. Staying in a relationship where your needs are ignored, your values misaligned, and your peace disturbed, that's not loyalty. That's fear. And fear will always talk you into staying in places your soul is begging you to leave. Starting over doesn't mean you're back at square one. It means you're finally giving yourself a chance to build something real, something healthy, loving, and worthy of the kind of person you're becoming. There's a certain kind of heartbreak that doesn't come from the dramatic ending of a relationship. It comes from the slow erosion of your confidence, the kind that happens when someone gives you just enough to keep you close, but never enough to feel secure. It's not overt neglect. It's not outright rejection. It's the half-hearted compliments, the last-minute plans, the sudden disappearances followed by just the right words to pull you back in. This is where it gets dangerous because now you're not only craving their love, you're chasing their approval. This pattern of unpredictable affection is more than just inconsiderate behavior. It's a form of emotional conditioning. When someone gives you attention inconsistently, your brain begins to associate that attention with reward. You don't know when it's coming, but when it does, it feels like a rush, feels like winning, and that high becomes addictive. It makes you forget all the moments you were sitting by your phone wondering what you did wrong. It makes you forget the nights you cried yourself to sleep after they canceled or ghosted or said something that cut deep but never apologized for. Instead, your mind latches onto the next win, that fleeting text, that one dinner where they held your hand, that one moment when it felt like maybe things were finally changing. This isn't love. This is emotional gambling. You're investing more and more of yourself just to feel a sliver of certainty, a drop of the intimacy you keep telling yourself still exists. But here's the truth. Someone who truly values you doesn't keep you guessing. They don't make your worth feel like something you have to earn over and over again. They don't disappear when it's hard, only to return when it's convenient for them. That's not romantic. That's manipulative. And over time, it teaches you to settle, to tolerate less, to doubt yourself. The real damage of emotional breadcrumbs isn't just that you're getting less than you deserve. It's that you start to believe this is normal. You start to think that love is supposed to be uncertain, that being anxious is just part of caring. But the truth is, real love doesn't leave you in limbo. Real love isn't about constantly proving your worth. It's about safety, consistency, peace. And if you have to lose pieces of yourself just to keep their interest, that interest isn't worth keeping. What keeps us stuck isn't just the addiction to the highs. It's the belief that if we leave, we're walking away from something almost right. That's the most dangerous lie of all. That maybe if you stay a little longer, they'll finally become the version of them you see in your dreams. But how many times do you have to relive the same cycle before you admit that their promises aren't plans, they're placeholders? How many times do you forgive before you finally acknowledge that nothing's changing? It's so easy to internalize the failures of this relationship and think it's your fault. That if you were more fun, more understanding, more patient, maybe they'd treat you better. But let me tell you something that I need you to hear. It's not about what you're doing wrong. It's about what they're unwilling to do right. Someone who truly cares doesn't keep offering you crumbs and calling it a meal. They show up. They communicate. They honor you, not only in words, but in actions over and over again. And yet we stay, not just because of what they give us, but because of what we feel we owe them. We take responsibility not only for their happiness, but also for their pain. Somewhere along the way, we bought into this quiet lie that if we just love them harder, if we just fix our flaws, will be enough to heal them. So we take on their moods, their insecurities, their trauma. We walk on eggshells, avoiding topics that might trigger them. We twist ourselves into shapes we don't recognize, just to keep the peace. But here's the thing. Love is not martyrdom. Your relationship should not feel like a job. You are not the custodian of their emotional well-being. It is not your responsibility to carry their wounds, especially when they refuse to even acknowledge them. And yet, this sense of responsibility runs deep. It gets tangled in your empathy, in your compassion, in your desire to be the one who finally breaks through to them, the one they change for. But if someone is only going to change because of how much you've given up for them, then it's not real change. It's guilt. And guilt is not the foundation for love. It's the foundation for resentment. You were never supposed to save them. You were supposed to love them from a place of equality, of shared effort, of mutual growth. When that balance is gone, so is the foundation. The longer you stay in this pattern, the more it chips away at your identity. You become someone who's always waiting for them to notice, to care, to choose you fully. And each time they don't, you shrink a little more. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. It's not your job to convince someone to treat you well. It never was. It's your job to recognize when they won't, and walk away. That's not giving up on love. That's standing up for it. When we talk about why it's so hard to let someone go, even when we know they're wrong for us, we often overlook one of the deepest, most powerful reasons of all. Because somewhere along the line, that relationship became a part of our identity. It's no longer just about a person. It's about the version of yourself you built around them. The routines, the future plans, the emotional investments, the shared memories, the us you spoke about in conversation. It's about the life you started to build, not just with them, but as someone who is with them. So when it's time to walk away, it doesn't just feel like letting go of a relationship. It feels like letting go of yourself. This is what keeps people stuck far longer than they should be. You've built something emotionally tangible, even if it's dysfunctional. You're attached to the story. You're attached to the hope. And you're especially attached to the role you've played. Maybe you were the caregiver, the fixer, the patient one, the woman who stood by him through every storm, the person who believed when no one else did. And to leave now feels like unraveling that entire narrative, like giving up on a character you've spent years becoming. But that's not the truth. You're not giving up on yourself by walking away. You're rediscovering who you are without the weight of a relationship that asks you to shrink. We often don't realize how much of our self-worth gets tied to being needed by someone else. You start to think, if I'm not their partner, who am I? That uncertainty is terrifying, because even if the relationship wasn't fulfilling, it was familiar. Even if it left you feeling unseen, at least it was a role you knew how to play. But familiarity is not the same as happiness. Predictability is not peace. And being someone's emotional support system is not the same as being loved. It's also about the fear of the void that comes after. The quiet. The weekends with no plans. The birthdays with no partner to celebrate with. The empty space in your bed. And maybe worse, the empty space in your heart where all those dreams used to live. We grieve not only the person, but the idea of the life we imagined with them. And that grief is very real. It's valid. But what's even more real is this. You don't have to continue living in a version of your life that only made you feel half-loved just because you're afraid of the unknown. This process of detachment is painful because your identity has been intertwined with someone else's inconsistencies. You made room for their storms, their silence, their promises. You adjusted yourself, your habits, your goals, your boundaries to make space for them. And over time, your sense of self started to fade into the background. So now, Letting them go feels like erasing what little is left of you. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is a shedding, a release. You're peeling off the layers that were never really yours to carry in the first place. And here's the part that hurts most of all. You can miss someone and still know they were never good for you. You can love them and still know they didn't love you in a way that made you feel safe, seen, and valued. You can mourn the loss of what you thought would be and still be making the healthiest decision of your life by walking away. That's the paradox. That's the emotional tension that keeps people paralyzed, because it doesn't feel clean, doesn't feel black and white. But love is not enough if it constantly costs you your joy, your peace, your sense of self. You're allowed to outgrow someone you once couldn't imagine living without. You're allowed to say, "This relationship doesn't reflect who I am anymore." Not because you're ungrateful, not because you're selfish, but because you're finally realizing that staying in something that no longer fits doesn't make you loyal, it makes you lost. And your life is too valuable to live in a state of emotional limbo just because walking away is hard. Sometimes we hold on because we think we've invested too much to let it all go. But your past investment is not a good enough reason to continue spending your future. Every moment you stay with someone who isn't right for you is a moment you delay meeting the version of yourself who is free, whole, and ready to receive the kind of love that doesn't ask you to keep sacrificing your worth. That version of you is still in there. Underneath the heartbreak, underneath the fear, she's waiting to be chosen. And the first person who has to choose her is you. Letting go isn't weak. It's brave. It's not about giving up on love. It's about giving up on the version of love that's been hurting you. You already know they're wrong for you. You already feel it in your soul. So don't wait for another disappointment to finally make the decision you already know in your heart is right. This is your moment to take your power back. To stop asking why they won't change and start asking why you keep waiting. The love you want starts with you, and letting go of what's not right makes space for what finally is. If this message spoke to you, leave a comment and share your story. Let's lift each other up, because healing doesn't happen in silence. If you found value here, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful relationship advice and self-worth motivation. And I'd love to hear from you. What topics do you want to hear about next? Drop your ideas below. Let's keep building this community of strength, love, and transformation together.